Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some nuclear revenge. Our first story today comes to us from Raven's Arts. Crazy entitled neighbor tries to bleach my sister's cat. Cat gets revenge. Let's jump right in. I count this as a nuclear revenge story, but not in the traditional sense. This happened many years ago. My older sister had this awful bee of a neighbor who had a serious hate-on for Sis's Seal Point Siamese cat. Crazy neighbor was a black-haired, plump, 40-something divorcee who annoyed everyone in the neighborhood. She had zero understanding of boundaries and liked to come over to people's homes, barge in, and look around, opening drawers and cabinets and touching their stuff. Once, she even went into someone's fridge and grabbed herself a ginger ale, then got mad when the homeowner took it back. If you left your door, front or back unlocked for more than 10 minutes, chances were she'd just come right in. She stole yard decorations from other people's yards and had been caught on more than one occasion pocketing something she'd snagged off a mantle or table of a house she'd invaded, and she would always throw a tantrum when she got busted. Cops have been called on her many times, but she was good at being pathetic, so most people didn't press charges. Unfortunately, this made her bolder. Basically, she was the entitled bee of the neighborhood. Sis was, unfortunately, one of her favorite victims. She'd come over without calling, barge her way in, and demand, to see Sis's cat, telling Sis how beautiful he was and how much she wanted a cat just like him. Sis, being rather non-confrontational, would let her see the cat, who didn't like the woman, then make her leave. Crazy neighbor never wanted to leave and had to basically be pushed out the door. Oh, and she despised me, because I wouldn't let her in when I answered the door, nor would I tolerate her BS in any way if she got past my sister. Crazy neighbor was so obsessed with the cat and offered to buy him many times. But Sis loved that cat. He'd been the runt of the litter and rejected by his mom. My sister had taken him and bottle-fed him, mothered him, and saved his life. He wasn't a pet, he was her child. So Sis, of course, always said no. This royally pissed off Crazy neighbor. One day the cat got out. He wasn't an outdoor cat. So Sis and I immediately started looking for him. We were checking the bushes and behind the flower pots in her backyard when we heard a very distinctive yowl, one of pure rage, followed by a very human shriek of pain coming from Crazy neighbor's house. Suddenly, the doggy door on Crazy neighbor's back door slams open and out runs my sister's cat, his tail and one rear paw covered in what smelled like hair bleach. I'm allergic to bleach and immediately recognized the smell as he passed me, dashing past us and into Sis's house. Next thing you know, Crazy neighbor's back door slams open and out she comes, cursing up a blue streak. Ragged claw marks adorned her left cheek and one of her hands had a deep bite wound that had completely saturated one of the gloves, the kind one gets with a hair coloring kit, she was wearing and running down her hand and arm. Turned out when the cat had gotten out, Crazy neighbor had grabbed him, took him inside, then tried to use hair bleach to bleach out the brown out of his tail and paws in order to change his appearance so she could keep him. Unfortunately for her, she didn't know crap about Siamese cats and just how violent they can be. They were originally temple guardians for a reason. The moment Crazy neighbor put that bleach on that cat's tail, he went absolutely berserk, letting out that yowl of rage we'd heard, clawing up Crazy neighbor's face and sinking his fangs deep into her hand. She pulled herself between the bushes, the ones that looked like tall green paintbrush heads Sis used to separate the property line, and began yelling. No, not yelling, shrieking. She shrieked that Sis's cat had wandered into her kitchen while she was cooking, and when she tried to pick him up, he attacked her for no reason. Clearly, this was total BS. Crazy neighbor then proceeded to call Sis the N-word several times. She's half black, and me an effing half-breed, I'm half Hispanic, we have different dads. She screamed that my sis was stupid for keeping such a dangerous animal, and that my sis would be paying all her medical bills. She then got right in my sister's face, pushed my sister hard in the chest with her uninjured hand, saying she was calling animal control and intended to have that thing put down. Crazy neighbor opened her mouth to shriek some more, but my sis, after hearing that last statement, and without one word or warning, hauled off and decked her. She landed on her butt in the grass, now clutching her left eye. Sis then loudly suggested crazy neighbor go screw herself with a hot curling iron, then ran inside to find her poor cat while I called the cops. The whole thing from start to end lasted only about 5 minutes. Sis found him hiding in the laundry room and quickly cleaned him off in the sink. Meanwhile, crazy neighbor is still on her butt in our backyard, howling like a banshee until the cops arrived. I told them what happened, and they later talked to my sister after she tended to her cat, who gave them the same story I did, even admitting to hitting crazy neighbor, in self-defense of course. It didn't hurt her case that crazy neighbor had left a bloody handprint on my sister's shirt when she'd shoved her. Crazy neighbor of course told them something entirely different. Her story was that she was about to bleach her hair when my sister's cat came in and attacked her. She also said both Sis and I attacked her too. I apparently kicked her in the stomach after Sis punched her, but the cops found no evidence of bruising, and the scratches on her face kinda masked her swelling eye. I also think the cops turned a blind eye, pun intended, to it, considering the circumstances, but since there was a clear blood trail leading to crazy neighbor's open back door, cops felt they had probable cause to go in. I think if crazy neighbor had been paying more attention, she'd have refused them entry. The blood trail led to a sink in the first floor bathroom. Blood, cat fur, a bleach applicator, and the box it came in were in the sink and on the floor. The cat's collar was in the garbage. Crazy neighbor kept trying to play the victim, but the cops didn't buy it. She got arrested, and my sister pressed charges for theft and assault. Crazy neighbor also got nabbed for possession of stolen goods. Cops found a bunch of DVD players and CD players still in their boxes, sitting on her coffee table and in the spare room next to her bathroom. And she had a bunch of prescription drug bottles with other people's names on them on her kitchen counter. Turned out she'd also been stealing neighbors' painkillers when she'd visited them. And, since she was a renter, the property owner gave her the boot for breach of contract. She went to jail and had to pay for the cat's vet bill. He was okay, but a bit traumatized, and had a yellow patch on his butt, paw, and tail for several months. Crazy neighbor's hand got infected from the cat bite, and it turns out it had also caused tendon and nerve damage as well. Moral of the story, stay out of people's houses, and have the common sense not to mess with a cat named Lucifer. I know this story's about a cat, but I want to go back to the point where this neighbor was going into houses all over the place, taking things, and they were focusing on OP's sister. Now, you've all seen the movie Home Alone, right? Because this seems to me like a perfect opportunity to do a whole bunch of booby traps inside your house just to see what happens to that wonderful neighbor. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our next story today comes to us from I'm Sick of Your Crap. Grandpa gave up what time he had left for revenge on my behalf. Let's jump right in. This is a throwaway account for obvious reasons. This story has a few references to some triggering things, just FYI. Now, I've been debating over posting this or not, but have finally decided I will. This is my grandpa's nuclear revenge on my behalf. So I guess let's begin. It's going to be a long story. I grew up dealing with a lot of mental health issues, as my mother is a drug addict and my father liked to ignore my existence, as I'm the result of a one-night stand while he was married. So, needless to say, his wife hated me and their children treated me horribly as well. The only good people I had in my life were my grandma and my grandpa on my father's side. I loved them and spent a lot of time at my grandpa's business. I'll explain that a little later. Now, at 14, everything went further downhill. I won't go into details, but my mother almost passed away, and I met a man, let's call him Goat. He looked like one. Long story short, Goat was 25 at the beginning and emotionally, physically, and sexually abused me. While I was under the prescient that I loved him and it was okay. He pushed me away from my grandparents and isolated me for 2 years until a friend helped me get out of it. During this next year, Goat stalked me, threatened me, and had me absolutely terrified. I was afraid of going to the police as I didn't want to bring harsh light to my grandpa's business, and because I was afraid. I was staying at my friend's house for a while during this time, as my panic attacks and what I now know as PTSD was horrible, and I hated to be alone. During this time, my grandmother passed away, one of the only lights in my life left, so I became worse. I began drinking and going to parties and trying to forget my life. Right before my 18th birthday, Goat made a real-life appearance again. On my way back from a big party, he jumped me, beat me black and blue, and almost killed me. I was found and taken to hospital, where they began treating me, and as I was underage, they asked me to call an adult in my life that they could talk to. I tried to call my father, but he didn't pick up. Knowing my mother wasn't going to help, I had to call my grandfather. He was at the hospital in lightning speed, and for the first time in my life, I watched this man that had built his own empire really break down. Even at my grandma's funeral, he didn't cry. I spent 2 months in the hospital with police questioning me and my grandpa by my side every day. During this time, he met my friend who helped me out of it all at the beginning and became very close to him. My grandfather helped me get on my feet for a whole year, until one day he had a large family gathering and socialized the whole time, taking me with him. That night, I will never forget. We went to get ice cream, and then he just hugged me for a very long time, holding me tight and reassuring me everything would be okay. The next day, my grandpa exacted his revenge. Now, my grandpa was the owner of a well-off law firm that also had private detectives in a smaller office in his building. He apparently tracked down Goat and went about his revenge. My grandpa shot Goat 3 times in the stomach and once in the chest. Goat passed away in the hospital later that day, while my grandpa was taken in and soon put in jail for manslaughter, which he pleaded guilty to. I never got the chance to visit my grandpa in jail, as he passed away soon after in jail from complications. 1 week after my grandpa's death, I got a call from his solicitor, and he asked me to go in. I was met with a lengthy letter from my grandpa, which was nothing but loving and showed that he had found out he had terminal lung cancer and wouldn't live much longer, but he couldn't happily leave me alone in this world without Goat being gone too. My grandpa left almost everything to me. At 20, I would inherit the law firm and could do as I pleased with it, and I inherited 95% of his savings, his house he lived in with grandma, and his other assets. In case anyone's interested, I turned 21 last week. I'm currently working at the law firm. My grandpa's secretary, now the CEO, has taken over the important things in the building and makes most of the decisions. I spent half the money I was given in locked savings funds for all of the younger family members to go to college when it's time. I cut all contact off with my father, who tried to steal money from me during the death arrangements of Grandpa. My friend mentioned earlier in the story is now my fiance, and we're getting married next summer. I'm still suffering from PTSD and depression, but it's getting better every day. I'm in therapy for my PTSD's treatment. I got a tattoo for my grandpa and my grandma on my back of 2 lions protecting a cub. I also opened up a safe house for anyone going through abuse of any kind. No matter the race, gender, or age, I'm trying to help anyone I can in that situation. Besides for what I've put away for later in life, I'm also thinking of opening up the bakery I always wanted and employing the people that need the job and help the most, but I am unsure at the moment about that. My grandpa and grandma was a godsend, and to this day I miss them greatly, but I know I couldn't have changed the stubborn old man's mind even if I tried. While I definitely don't condone Grandpa's actions, I understand them completely. He was already on his way out, and he thought he could make the world a better place for you. OP, your grandpa's a badass. I know you're doing a bunch of things with Grandpa's money for other people, but OP, remember yourself. Make sure you put enough away to keep yourself comfortable going through life. Our last story today comes to us from Drumhead, entitled Lady's Porsche Loses Tires. Let's jump right in. Okay, so this story took place back when I was in Florida in the early 90s. It does involve an act of vandalism that is connected to revenge. Hopefully it won't be removed, and hopefully it will count as nuclear revenge. Anyway, South Florida was devastated by Hurricane Andrew. My dad, as part of a local charity, was set up day after day at a local market, seeking donations from shoppers to give to food banks. You have to understand this storm left many people homeless and without power in some cases for 6+ months in Florida heat and humidity. My father was legally disabled from a serious car accident. He was hit by a drunk driver in the early 80s and suffered from relentless hip and back problems. It never killed his heart or kindness to others, hence the charity work. One day, he was about to pull into the disabled space at the local market to go buy a few items to donate to the hurricane charity. Right before he's about to pull in, this lady pulls into the space in this shiny red Porsche. My dad parks behind her and says, "Excuse me, ma'am, I was about to pull in there," and also points to his disabled placard in the window. She says to him, "You don't look disabled," and proceeded to walk into the store. For anyone who has a relative who uses a disabled space, you know the frustration of this situation and the anger one feels. My dad, seemingly unfazed, waits until she goes into the store and then gets out and snips the valve stems on all 4 tires, flattening but not destroying all of them. He then pulls into another space not far away and just waits. About 15 minutes later, the lady comes out and is shrieking about her car being vandalized. My dad is far enough away so she can't see him, but he can hear everything. She calls the police. Big mistake. She files a report for vandalism, and the police give her a ticket for being parked in the disabled space with no placard, about $250 at the time. The cop leaves, and she calls a tow truck. As the car is being loaded onto the truck, my dad pulls up and says to her, "You don't look disabled, but your car sure is," and then drives off. My dad could be a nice guy and pure savage when he needed to be. Savage indeed. Again, I don't condone their actions, but oh my gosh, it had to be amazing seeing that woman's reaction when she walked back out to her precious Porsche. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.